Good evening and welcome to another exciting live session of School of Port. My name is Gustavo Devesas and I'll be hosting tonight's session all the way from Copenhagen, Denmark. For those that are not so familiar with our online platform, School of Port, it's an online, it's for us, it's a ultimate online platform when it comes to educate port wine. In our view, it's an engaging way to those that are willing to discover the wonders of port wine and the Douro Valley. If you are looking to discover more about the marvelous world of port in an engaging, fun, relaxed, and most of all dynamic way, you are extremely welcome to follow us. We have several activities happening throughout the week. So please let us know and don't hesitate whenever you want to know a bit more about our several programs. Tonight, I'm extremely excited because it's actually a new chapter in our live sessions. We are actually having, for the first time, a new chapter we are calling Giants in the Skies. I know it sounds something a little bit out of the box, and that's pretty much what we aim also with these live sessions. It's also to bring something different. And basically Giants in the Skies, it's the theme name that we believe that illustrates the professionals that are working around the world and that are spreading the love and the word around the port wine. So I think it's a fantastic way also to give the opportunity for these professionals and for all those that love port and that are spreading the message around it, to have an opportunity to show what they are doing and also to share it with the world. So without further ado, I am super happy to invite in a few seconds David Nunes. David is Portuguese, originally from Lisbon, Portugal, and he will tell us his amazing story, how he ended up in London, and actually he's the head sommelier at one of the most amazing hotels in the UK and in London, called the Milestone Hotel. For those that are not so familiar with this hotel, among other distinctions, this hotel was considered by Forbes Travel Guides as one of the best 5-star hotels in the world. So I think it's extremely amazing for us to have someone like David to share his knowledge about port wine and his passion about port. So I will invite David to join us. Just a second. Seconds. It's currently connecting. And if you have any questions, please just either use the comments, or the best way is actually to use the question option that you have right at the bottom. So, still connecting. Let's give it a few more seconds.
Boas, pessoal, não sei se me estão a ouvir porque eu não vejo ainda o Gustavo.
It's not a long way from Copenhagen to London, so should be fine. And for those wondering how to have this shirt very soon,
alguém me consegue ouvir? Conseguem confirmar aí no live?
All the School of Port team, we are extremely delighted to have the merchandising available very soon to share with all of you. So soon you will be able to wear all these
Somebody
amazing
can listen
t-shirts. So I'm having David enable. Let's find him again. A few more seconds. Here we go. Here we go. So we are connecting, and here we are.
Okay. Now I have sound. Now I have sound.
Great seeing you. Fantastic.
Hello. Great seeing you as well. I didn't have sound for a while, so I wasn't sure if it was just me. But
How
now
are you?
Everything is perfect.
Great seeing you.
I'm good. I didn't hear the introduction, by the way, so I don't know if you said
Well,
anything important, but
a few things. I think most important, it's the fact that you are actually inaugurating this new chapter that we are calling Giants in Disguise in our live sessions. It's basically a new chapter in our live sessions that aims to show to the world, the professionals that are spreading, the love and the fantastic world of port wine. And you are one of those, definitely. So we are really excited to hear all the magic that you are doing in London. So
thank you.
please tell us a little bit how you ended up in London, and how is your work nowadays?
Absolutely. I mean, to be fairly honest, I mean, nowadays with the situation that we're going through, obviously it's terrible in London, but I'm sure it's terrible in other places, but London specifically because it gets affected by tourism, or the non-tourism in this case. But last month I've done 10 years of London when I moved to London, like to seek for new adventure. I didn't know exactly what to do in particular, but I started as a waiter in a restaurant. And then I had like my first contact with wines and international wines. Even though in our DNA, I always say in the Portuguese DNA, we always have a little bit of the wines, that the quality and the tradition that we carry. So I think I was carrying that already. So I did start as a waiter, and then I moved on to work in an hotel and start to have a little bit of experience. And this passion for wine started to grow more and more. When I moved to the Milestone Hotel, which was 7 years ago, I started to have more contact with wine because I moved to a position that was open as assistant sommelier or wine waiter, which at the moment I am the responsible for the wine. So I took over of that first position, but it was a good initial process of learning. I had a few adventures, which I will tell you in this episode with some special guests. Some I won't mention the name, some I will mention the name because it's perfectly fine. But I mean, it's been a great adventure so far, and I'm still like in the process still, because there's so many things I want to do with wine and work with.
Well, we can see your background. It's wonderful to have someone with so many bottles. I would love to have that, but it's. Oh, yeah,
some of them are
sure,
empty.
Some
of them are empty.
I hope so. So, I mean, I think people are curious to know. I mean, you are originally from Lisbon, but as you said, 10 years already in London. And one of the questions that comes to my mind is, what does port mean to you in terms of your work? And probably most important is how it adds value, to the experience to your customers.
Absolutely. I mean, in particular, and very quick before I start regarding the job, I'm a port lover by far. Even before I moved to London, I was already a port lover. My father used to work with wine, so I really have this passion. At my work and in hospitality in general, I think port adds great value to it. It's one of the beverages that has more tradition and one of the oldest beverages to be produced, and that also talks about the story that we have between us and the Brits, which is one of the oldest alliances in the world. I mean, in my case in particular, I do like to add a port to a cheese board, to a dessert, depending in particular which dessert. I'm lucky enough to be able to have a few ports in my list, not just one or two. So I can also play a little bit with my guests, depending on what they have. If they have a sticky toffee pudding, if they have just a cheese board or something lighter, I can play with different ports. But I think it adds great value, as I said, because of the tradition, because of the history, because of the flavor in particular. I mean, I love tawny ports. I have 2 tawny ports by the glass where I work at the Milestone. I have a 10-year-old and a 30-year-old. So they can have, I have 3 because I have the 1994 single harvest from Graham's at the moment. So 3 tawny ports, 1 single harvest, 2 tawnies, 110 and 130. I used to have a vintage with the Coravin, but the cork is quite thick. But it's a good thing to be doing with the Coravin is to do with the vintage port. A while ago, we were speaking, I don't know if it was with Rupert from the Symingtons, and the possibility of Coravin having a special needle for the ports. I think that would be great for the industry. Even though it works, I think it can do a better job on that. But yeah, it does have great value. I love working with the ports, and being Portuguese, being an ambassador of the ports, I always try to push for the port a little bit, because even though it's familiar for many people, similar to champagne that has the name, it has to come from the region. But some people are not familiar with the differences of port and which food you can pair with. So I think that's the part of the job I'm normally doing.
Interesting because, of course, the UK, it's a very traditional, I would say, market for port wine. But despite that, I think it's also interesting that we can also bring some innovation in terms of restaurant business. And like you said, it's very interesting to have several styles of tawny port with different ages, even some colheita style, which I believe it's very interesting for the customers, because some of the customers they might go to your place several times, and this enables you to don't offer the same wine all the time. And like you said, we have the opportunity to extend the experience with the customers. I always think of port, especially at the end of the meal, as a fantastic way to close the meal.
I completely agree. And now that you mentioned, I do also have a flight of port in my list. So it allows the guest to go from, I normally do it the 10-year-old, the 30-year-old, the single harvest. And if I'm able, I give them a touch of vintage. But normally I have these three, at least to have an introduction of the townies. And people do see the color, they see the difference. One detail that I was quite in love when I visit the cellars in Porto was the light that you have on your tasting room. And that's amazing to see the color of the wine. I normally try to give them a bit of light and to introduce them to ways of checking the color and the flavors. So, the guest in general, they likes to be involved. And also port gives us the opportunity of talking about history and tradition, which I think they all have to be in the same line of the wine business in every way. I think you can always modernize, but I think you need to keep a bit of the tradition on it.
I have in mind for you, it's about the perceptions that in the reactions that you have from customers when it comes to port. I believe, like you said, you were doing some vintage port using Coravin, and also quite a nice range of aged tawnies. And I believe it might create some different reactions to your customers, isn't it?
Absolutely. The perception people have is some guests, as you said, and I have some regular guests, they normally let me choose the wine for them, which it gives me a lot of pleasure, and they always trust what I do. So I normally present them with different vintage ports if it's a guest that normally has a vintage port. Regarding the perception, some guests, again, they don't know you can have a port with some particular desserts, and that's why I always try to push something specifically. I try to use different brands, but also if I give them the same, so let's say different years from the same producer, they can always have a good comparison in terms of aging of the wine in particular. It works well, as I mentioned, with the desserts perfectly, and cheese boards specifically because of the style.
You are working in a fantastic environment, I would say. A fantastic hotel, a fantastic restaurant, and not yet. No, actually,
you've been there,
but I only hear very good things.
Not yet.
So it's definitely in my agenda to visit my next visit to London. Definitely. But actually, I think you are actually working in a quite international environment, because you don't have, London, it's extremely international, first of all, but also you should have quite a lot of, I would say, international guests and tourists. So you don't necessarily have all the time the classic perception, I would say.
No, I mean some guests they don't have the classic perception. I mean, it's not just a wine place, and here that's normally what it gives us the opportunity to do that bridge, to build that bridge between the product and the guest when it doesn't have the good perception what port can do as a pairing of a dessert, of a cheese board, and other desserts that we can use. That's when we build the bridge, and that gives us a lot of pleasure. Also for red wines, which I can say that I'm an ambassador of port wines in particular, because first of all you believe in the product, and I do believe in the product. And also some guests they're not really familiar with ports. They are a little bit, but with red wines not so much.
That's, I think one will help
it's
the
getting
other,
there.
and vice versa. And actually talking about not moving away from port, even though Douro wines are amazing, but there's an interesting question I also have for you regarding what do you believe that the port producers and the trades, the industry in general, could do in order to bring more excitement and some more, energy, some more drive in terms of the on-trade, in terms of the Horeca, in your case?
That's a very good question, Gustavo. I mean, I mentioned before the Coravin, would be like an option for the vintages, for example. I think the industry should keep, as I mentioned, especially for the port. We're talking about the port. It should keep the tradition and the history as it is, because again, that's a very important part of it. But also try to modernize certain aspects without damaging the tradition. I do think sometimes some brands, I'm just saying it randomly, they do try to modernize too much. And I think it can be, I don't know if the word is good, but it can be a bit of disrespect to the tradition and the history that the wine carries, just playing a little bit too much. I think it's definitely people should modernize. The image is important, the promotion is important, but try to get people involved. I think that could be quite important. I mean, back in the days, people normally would buy port for their grandsons. Nowadays, you have products that they can actually approach the younger people. They can buy a wine that you can drink in 2 years, in 1 year, in terms of getting something better. But you don't need to wait those 50 years or 100 years.
True.
I mean, you get something different. Obviously, you get something
maybe
curious.
Some of the viewers that we have, they might be wondering how on earth these two guys are talking about port and they don't even have a glass around them. Of course, we have. Beautiful.
I do have. I was just opening the bottle. Kind of. It's not a very special bottle. I don't know if I should show you.
You are more than welcome.
It's a port.
All ports are amazing, and as I usually say, well, so that's a ruby style. Yeah, mine is a Tawny.
A little bit darker than you, no?
Absolutely. Okay.
This is a special reserve.
I have a 10 years old of the same producer, Coburn.
Okay, what brand is that? It's a Coburn. I do have a Coburn's as well. I have to be honest. I got it on the supermarket next door. But it's a great product. I think it does the job amazing.
One of those things. I mean, going back to the question in terms of innovation and also in terms of how to engage with top restaurants. One of the things that myself I see here in Copenhagen is also to be a little bit out of the box without losing our DNA. And for example, here when you talk about port, in particular, the style you have, which is a ruby style, fruit-driven, quite powerful. I have many people, the first word they say here, it can be quite shocking. It is pepper steak. Yes, because that
pepper
shows
steak. Yeah, it does.
How we are able to break boundaries when it comes to port, because you have the perception port is cheese and pudding, sweet desserts. But that's fantastic, and that's a classic combination. People should always bear that in mind. But port can be so versatile. And yeah, absolutely, it's the perception, and I think
To open the mind of people, right?
most of the work that the industry should do is to engage in terms of showcasing the different styles of port, because many people, they don't really know how they are able to pair a tawny, a white, the different options, how long they can keep the wines. Quite basic when but a lot of people, they don't even know they should drink port in a regular wine glass chilled. So this, it's 101 port, and I think it's also one of the reasons why this platform, School of Port, is helping on that. We believe. I have an interesting question while you enjoy your port, which I think, you work in a fantastic hotel and restaurant, like we said, in a fantastic location, and I'm pretty sure you might have some amazing stories with some some well-known guests. Maybe you want to share some of those.
Yeah, there's a few funny stories that you actually mentioned. That some guests, I won't be able to mention their name just for discretion that our hotel has in Milan. But I do have a particular story with port and a very special guest. That guest belongs to the royal family. I won't mention the name, but I was actually invited from my general manager to be the one serving that guest in particular. So I did serve him a few times, and I was able to have a little conversation with the guest in particular. So, the bottle, by the way, I'm going to show it here because it's in particular one of my favorite ports as well.
Beautiful.
This is the 1982 single harvest port. This is the little one, which was offered by Johnny Symington. So thanks to Johnny. This particular port, I had a 4.5 liter bottle by the glass. And funny enough, when I served this guest, he was with other 3 guests at the table, and the bottle was almost finished. So I took the bottle to the table. That's a bit of the part of the show off that works really well with a 4.5 liter bottle of port from Graham's. I take the bottle to the table. They're not expecting a huge bottle of 4.5 liters. So when I got there, basically I served a glass per guest, and there was a little back in the end of the bottle, which I offered myself. And that guest from the royal family took the empty bottle to use as a flower vase. So I asked him the next time I served this particular guest, I asked, so what have you done with the bottle? So I give it to another member of my family, and now it's being used as a jar of flowers, basically.
Talking about
he loved the port, by the way.
That's a powerful message as well.
Let's reuse them. No, I had that was the specific one that I had really much fun
actually, with the guests. It's not new to me, this story. We had probably, I should have said, I had the pleasure of meeting you a while back in Porto when we were on holidays in the summer, and I was really amazed by your passion towards port and the Douro. Even more when you are originally not from Porto, because I believe that's even more amazing.
Yeah,
I think it's fantastic to have a giant in disguise. That we are a real giant.
A real giant, right?
Like I promised, very soon you will have your official Port Geek School of Port T-shirt.
I love that.
And I think it's wonderful to know that we have someone like you as a true ambassador for port wine in the UK. Hopefully we have many more, and that's also one of the reasons for us to bring out these giants in disguise. I don't know if you have. Go ahead.
I have a little story to add. I have a little story to add if you have 30 seconds. As we're talking about the stories, I just mentioned it was nothing specific to do with the port, but I did serve a port to that guest while I was having this conversation. Many people would know who is Mika Hakkinen, the Formula One champion. And I did serve Mika Hakkinen. He was having a glass of port, but the conversation wasn't about port, but he was having some trouble setting up his watch with an iWatch, an iPhone, and one of my guests, so he was together with another one of my guests and one of my colleagues, and I remember like serving him the port, and while my colleague was trying to set up the watch for him, I just remember mentioning to him, it's probably easier to drive a Formula One than to fix that. And he actually looked at me and he smiled. And also I said to him, don't drink and drive, but we were all laughing and while he was drinking the port. That was quite
That's
fun.
a fantastic story. Absolutely.
Great guest, by the way.
No, it's a fantastic story. It's so amazing that you are actually associating port to these personalities and you have a precise memory of what happened. I think it's a fantastic thing. So, well, we are running a bit through our 30 minutes, I guess. We have
I hope you guys enjoy
questions, but there are quite a lot actually. And my suggestion is for these quite technical or specific questions about different styles and so on, please send us a direct message on our Instagram account, and we'll be more than welcome and more than happy to answer all your questions. David, I don't know if you want to give a final word to everyone and to invite everyone to visit you at the Milestone Hotel.
Absolutely. I mean, unfortunately, we're not open at the moment because of lockdown. Hopefully, we'll open at some point next year when things get normalized. I will be in Portugal, hopefully at some point as well, to visit you guys. But I mean, if anyone has any question regarding port, regarding wine that I can help with, that I can have just a wine conversation, that will just be great. I mean, thank you for inviting me. First of all, it's not a secret to some of you that I have good relationship with the Symingtons, but I also love every port house that does the job and goes ahead. It's lucky enough I'm opening, like as I said, the special reserve. It could have been something else. I have other brands. I have a 2011. I think I have one here. Let me show you something very special, very quick. I don't want to take too much time. This was opened on my birthday 2 years ago. It's a 1982 vintage port from Sandman. It's my year of birth, hence why 1982. And it's a huge bottle. I think only 4 or 5 houses of port they declare vintage on that year. And this one is also very special for fantastic reasons. This is the first vintage port with the name Quinta do Crasto, the 1994, which is an exceptional vintage, as you know. And it's signed by Manuel Lobo, which is the winemaker. And they had 20 bottles on the time that I got this one, by the way. Anyway,
thank you, David.
Thank you very much for inviting me, first of all.
I hope, I'm pretty sure everyone enjoyed hearing about your fantastic journey in London, and you are very welcome to come and see us back in Porto. We look very much forward to see you again. And well, take the opportunity for a Merry Christmas. I mean, we are getting there. And maybe talking about giants,
Merry Christmas Club.
A toast to one of the big giants that unfortunately has left us, Maradona. I think, yeah, that's
Maradona. That's true. I'm pretty sure he was enjoying a lot of sports.
A toast to him. And thank you so much, David. We look very much forward. I will give a final word to everyone. Thank you. My pleasure. Our pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Fantastic. So thank you so much for those that joined us for this live session. We sincerely hope that you enjoyed this new chapter, Giants in Disguise. Thank you so much for joining us once again. Please, if there is any specific question or if you would like to know a bit more about our different programs in terms of education, send us an email, drop us a direct message. We are very happy to answer all your questions. And please also make sure that very soon we will have our merchandising available, and we look forward to see all of you wearing this in big style. Cheers and have a wonderful evening. Thank you.